What if the most dangerous laboratory in America isn't underground or behind barbed wire? What if it's the place you grab paper towels and cereal at 2 a.m.? Tonight we're following a breadcrumb trail through America's largest retailer. Separate incidents, scattered states, ordinary stores, until they click together like teeth on a zipper. Some call it coincidence. Others call it a pattern. You decide. Everything you're about to hear comes from police calls, open records responses, employee interviews, shopper testimonies, and corporate statements. Where hard proof ends, I'll say so. Where the gaps line up too neatly, I'll say that too. This is not a verdict. It's a map. Story 1, the pattern you weren't meant to see. The first time I noticed the pattern, it wasn't a headline. It was a small-town police log. Caller reports confusion inside supercenter. Patrons moving in groups, no threats. The timestamp was 01:14. Night shift hour, the fluorescent dawn workers joke about. A manager told dispatch the situation was odd but stable. No crime, no arrests, just people acting in sync. 2 weeks later, a different state, same chain, similar phrasing. Guests wandering in coordinated fashion, no signs of intoxication. It read like copy-paste. By the 4th log, I stopped believing in coincidence. I started keeping a wall calendar. Thumbtacks, twine, store numbers, timestamps. I reached out to an overnight stalker. Let's call him Ray. He said it starts like a flicker you don't notice until you do. End cap displays rotated 90 degrees between shifts. Aisles relabeled even though the signage didn't change. Pallets staged so you must turn left, never right. He learned to ignore it. Until the night, all 3 self-checkouts froze mid-transaction while the overhead music cut to a low, pulsing tone. He felt it more than heard it, like a hand on the back of his neck, guiding. Maybe it's nothing, he told me. Or maybe it's a metronome and we're the song. I asked shoppers to send me any odd footage they had, phone clips, dash cams, receipts. One woman sent a 27-second video that still unnerves me. She's filming the toy aisle for her kid. You can see the end cap plushies, slime kits, a rack of kaleidoscopes. She pans away when her child squeals. When she pans back, the end cap is different. Same shelf, same price tags, different products. No cut, no jump. I took the clip to 3 editors, none could find a seam. The store, when asked, blamed overnight resets and editing artifacts. There was no reset scheduled that night. Another viewer sent a photo of 3 mirrors bolted above cosmetics, convex for security. In the first photo, she's wearing a yellow raincoat. In the second, taken 12 seconds later, the center mirror shows a green jacket, while the left and right still show yellow. I filed requests for maintenance logs. The store replaced those mirrors the next week. A former assistant manager, Nadia, told me her team was briefed before Black Friday on a crowd flow study. Harmless, right? Except part of the study involved shifting shelf heights 1 notch mid-rush and logging how often people lifted items they couldn't reach. No pause for safety, no warning, just the gentle pressure of inconvenience noted and graphed. We called them nudge nights, she said, like someone was learning which way we tilt. Multiple employees independently described a sound, more a feeling than a tone, around closing or deep night. An HVAC tech told me the ceiling speakers can carry a range you won't hear, but your body will debate. You'll think you're anxious for no reason, he said. Then you'll shop faster. I found a cluster of incidents tied to that same hour. 00:57 to 01:19. Registers glitch. People abandon carts. Aisles clear. Sales of grab-and-go items spike. A corporate spokesperson later called it normal variability. Maybe, but the pattern repeats across states with different climates, different managers, the same hum. One cashier played me a recording off her phone. The store music fades. For 7 seconds, there's a faint shimmer like cicadas under glass. A toddler begins to cry off camera. A man sets down a basket and leaves. The cashier told me, every time that shimmer hits, we sell more bottled water and pain relievers. She laughed after, then looked like she wished she hadn't. A janitor mailed me a Ziploc with 3 tiny stickers, the kind you'd miss unless you scrape gum for a living. Blue dots tucked under shelf lips near price rails at knee height. UV reactive. He found them in patterns, 3, 5, 8, Fibonacci spirals along the cereal aisle. When I asked corporate, they said they were inventory audit markers, but when I scanned them with a blacklight, each glowed with a different intensity, like a breadcrumb trail that brightens the closer you get to an end cap. Here's where the pattern theory sharpens. Whenever blue dot clusters appear, stores quietly pilot micro layouts, shifting staple items a few steps, forcing detours past high-margin goods. It's retail 101 to test layout, sure, but these weren't end-of-aisle promotions. They were maze edits. Walk long enough at 2 a.m., and the cereal you passed 15 minutes ago feels farther away than it should be. Your brain whispers you're lost in a rectangle you've shopped for years. I timed it. A nurse wrote me. Same aisle, same start point. 2 minutes day shift. 4 minutes at night. Aisle didn't change. I swear the air did. All of this could be dumb luck, careless resets, overstretched night crews. But patterns don't argue, they accumulate. A loss prevention officer, 15 years in, said the real trick isn't catching shoplifters. It's teaching a crowd to regulate itself. You get one loud voice, the rest fall in line. Cheaper than guards. He showed me training slides, how to angle a mirror to multiply a single associate into 3, how to position a cart so bodies funnel rather than wander, how to seed behavior with actors, an associate placing a microwave in their own cart to signal last one urgency. None of this is illegal. It's design. The pattern theory says, scale it, hide it, study the curve. Another slide demonstrated disfluency bumps, small, intentional frictions that slow a person by half a second. A crooked price tag, a shelf lip 1 notch too high, a scanner that asks you to reaffirm what you just affirmed. A half-second multiplied by millions becomes profit or data. We were told to watch faces, the officer said. Micro-expressions. When they squint at the tag, we move the display. When they self-correct, we keep it. When I asked if anyone ever said stop, he shrugged. Stop what? We call it optimization. The night that clinched the mosaic for me happened in a store outside Amarillo. I arrived after a tip. Come at 12:45, watch the seasonal aisle. I parked under a sodium light and kept my camera in the console. At 12:53, music bled into a song that didn't match the station's rotation. At 12:56, 3 associates wheeled pallets to the end of aisle 23 and then waited. Not working, not talking, just standing with stacked boxes of unsorted decor. At 01:01, people began to drift toward them. Not many, maybe 9 total. No announcement. No discount signs, just a current. One man picked up a box and set it in his cart like it belonged to him already. A woman took 2, then returned 1, then took it again. No scanning, no staff correction. The associates stood still like mile markers. After 3 minutes, everyone dispersed. The pallets, weirdly, looked taller, as if more had appeared than vanished. I walked in at 01:07. The seasonal aisle was empty. A manager snapped at me that the store was closing, even though the hours posted said 01:30. I left with a headache that felt like a pressure change in an airplane. Weeks later, someone from that store's night crew sent me a short video. The seasonal aisle again. 3 convex mirrors nested like eyes above the end cap. In the reflection, there were 2 pallets, 1 real, 1 implied, but only 1 on the floor. He wrote, "We call them masks. The mirror shows the store it wants to be." So, are these random oddities or rehearsals? On my wall, the pins formed corridors. sound to nudge, light to steer, mirrors to multiply, dots to guide, actors to seed, friction to slow, and always the same hour, the night's thin part when you're tired enough to second-guess the ground. When I put this to a corporate rep, she said, our stores run small pilots constantly to improve safety and convenience. When I asked about the tone, the dots, the nighttime resets, she pivoted. We take guest comfort seriously. She is not wrong. Everything I've described can wear a polite name. Optimization, planogram, seasonal, audit. The pattern theory doesn't accuse, it connects. If you wanted to understand perception and control, not with drugs or scalpels, but with design, you'd need a place where millions move under bright lights, where cameras already watch. Where I felt weird can be dismissed as fatigue. You wouldn't need permission beyond a sign that says we improve our stores all the time. You just need to measure. Patterns are cold. People aren't. I want you to hear a few voices. I started double bagging because the bags felt thinner at night. They weren't. I kept thinking I forgot something, so I went back 3 times. The aisle curved. It didn't, but it did. I used to love the night shift. Now I wear earplugs and still hear a hum that isn't there. I got faster at checkout like somebody was tapping their foot. Not one of these proves a conspiracy, but together they read like field notes from a maze. When you tire the eyes and dull the ears and nudge the feet, you don't have to force anyone to do anything. You can ask the body a question, and the body will answer before the mind realizes. This is where I confess the limits. I don't have the sealed memo. I don't have the lab specs. I have logs, videos, receipts, maintenance tickets, and human beings telling me the same story in different words. If there is a program, it is threaded through normal retail logic so tightly you cannot pull it without unraveling the sweater of modern shopping itself. Maybe that's the point. To build an experiment you never have to hide because no one thinks of a store as a test. We accept the hum. We forgive the mirror. We laugh about getting lost in rectangles. The next time you're there under the day-bright ceilings, try this. Stop. Let the cart stream past. Don't follow the aisle's suggestion. Turn the wrong way. If you feel a pressure between your shoulders, that's not proof of anything. That's your animal self arguing with a room that thinks it's smarter than you. And if a low shimmer crawls up your jaw and a mirror shows you from a slightly kinder angle and a blue dot winks near your shoes, remember, even if no one planned a pattern, patterns are what our brains are built to survive. We learn the maze by walking it. We break the maze by noticing it. Random oddities or coordinated tests of perception and control. I can't tell you what to believe. I can only hand you the map I made in the dark and ask, when the lights buzz tonight at 1:14, who's keeping time and who's keeping you? Story 2. The man who lived in Walmart for 3 days and what he left behind. What if the world's largest retailer wasn't just a place for groceries, clothing, and endless aisles of products, but also a place where the walls themselves hid secrets? Tonight, we'll uncover a true story that shook employees in Louisiana and still lingers in whispers. A man who lived, unnoticed, inside a Walmart supercenter for 3 full days. But what he left behind was far stranger than anyone expected. Baton Rouge, March 2019. The supercenter on Airline Highway looked like any other. Fluorescent lights, endless rows of merchandise, and a skeleton crew watching over the store during the quiet hours. But beneath the hum of the air vents, something unusual was unfolding. Employees noticed the bedding section looked wrong. Comforters shifted, pillows scattered. No big deal, right? Retail chaos is normal. But then came the sound that froze them, breathing. Slow, rhythmic, coming from behind a fortress of blankets. Security guard Jason Carter approached carefully, expecting maybe a homeless man trying to get warm. What he found instead was David, A middle-aged man with graying hair, calm voice, and layers of clothing still dangling with Walmart price tags. David didn't panic. He didn't run. Instead, he greeted Jason as though he had been waiting. And here's the chilling part. He claimed he had been living there for days. On the surface, it seemed like desperation. But the more David spoke, the more disturbing it became. He wasn't just squatting, he was experimenting. He ate food by carefully opening packages so they'd look like damaged goods. He used the restrooms like any customer, but cleaned up obsessively so no trace was left. He washed his clothes in the display appliances. He mapped out security blind spots, memorized shifts, and even used electronics displays to charge his phone. To him, Walmart wasn't a store, it was a living organism. He studied it, adapted to it, and for 3 nights became part of it. Here's where the story grows darker. When police escorted David out, they searched his nest. Among the bedding and discarded packaging, they found a hand-drawn map of the entire store, complete with camera blind spots and notes on staff movements. A journal where he logged everything he consumed, including how many paper towels he used. Strange sketches, almost architectural, showing how a person could build hidden living spaces within retail stores using merchandise as camouflage. Some staff later said the drawings looked less like notes from a desperate man and more like blueprints for future intrusions. David was arrested for trespass, and Walmart quietly updated their overnight security. More cameras, more patrols, but employees weren't unsettled because he got in. They were unsettled because of how calm, rational, and methodical he was. Jason Carter, the guard who found him, later admitted, "He seemed more like a researcher than a vagrant. That's what haunted me." If one man could live inside a Walmart unnoticed for 3 days, what else could be done in those blind spots? This is where the story takes a darker turn into the unknown. Some believe David wasn't alone, that he was part of a community testing how long people could survive undetected in liminal spaces like superstores, malls, or airports. Others think his experiment was protest, a way of surviving inside the very system that left him homeless. But the most unsettling theory, that David's maps and notes weren't meant for him at all, that he was testing vulnerabilities for someone else. Think about it. Walmart stores are massive, some bigger than football stadiums. At night, with just a handful of employees, entire sections feel abandoned. The shelves become walls, the aisles corridors. It's easy to imagine someone slipping out of sight, moving from garden center to electronics, bedding to automotive, always just outside the line of a camera's view. And if one man could do it so effectively, what about a coordinated group? David eventually vanished into court records and local news archives, but his experiment left a scar. Employees began reporting phantom footsteps, the sensation of being watched while walking past empty aisles. And Jason Carter said something chilling in an interview. He wasn't crazy. That's what made it terrifying. He made Walmart feel less like a store and more like a maze. And when I walk those aisles at night, sometimes I still wonder if someone else is in there, hiding, waiting, studying. So next time you wander into a big box store late at night, remember David, the man who proved it was possible to live inside one. And ask yourself, what if he wasn't the first, and what if he won't be the last? Story 3, the Bakersfield Phantoms. What if the aisles you know best, the ones lined with cereal boxes, canned goods, and midnight discounts, were not just a store but a stage? What if the people you saw shopping weren't customers at all, but something else? Something rehearsed, synchronized, and impossible. On June 4th, 2019, in Bakersfield, California, 15 people entered America's largest retailer, even though the doors were locked. They shopped in silence. They paid with play money, And then, as if obeying a script, they disappeared. Ming Avenue in Bakersfield is ordinary, a sprawl of neon signs, car dealerships, and fast food chains. The Walmart supercenter there shuts its doors at 11 p.m. By 12:30 a.m., the store should have been silent, populated only by night crews stacking boxes and humming to themselves to fight off sleep. But on that night, stalkers and supervisors saw something they could not explain. Down the aisles walked customers. Not one or two stragglers who had slipped past closing, but an entire crowd. 15 figures pushing carts, collecting goods. The parking lot was empty. The entrances never opened. The cameras confirmed the doors were sealed. And yet, here they were. They weren't rowdy, and they weren't loud. They moved with the eerie choreography of mannequins come to life. One bent to examine soup cans, another carefully loaded 17 identical phone chargers into a cart. A motherly figure stacked children's games, but only one title over and over again. They never bumped into each other. They never spoke. They navigated the store like they'd been trained, gestures mirroring one another across different aisles. When confronted, one shopper handed over a list, handwritten. At first, it looked normal, but the longer the staff stared, the less sense it made. The handwriting was neat, too neat. The strokes were mechanical, like the hand of a copier rather than a writer. At the self-checkout lanes, the illusion cracked. Each shopper rang up items, bagged them neatly, and produced fake money. Brightly colored bills that resembled play cash from a children's game. The machines rejected them, of course. But instead of confusion, the shoppers smiled faintly, like they had completed their part of the ritual. They bagged the items anyway, carts moving forward as if nothing had gone wrong. To the employees watching, the sight was more chilling than theft. This wasn't chaos. This wasn't rebellion. This was obedience to rules no one else understood. Security rushed to the front, keys in hand, ready to unlock the glass doors and call police. That's when the impossible happened. The 15 customers gathered in a single file line. They left their carts neatly behind, groceries still inside. And then one by one they walked out. The doors hadn't been opened yet. Witnesses swore the figures slid through the locked glass like it was mist. When officers arrived minutes later, the parking lot was empty. No cars, no footsteps, just the desert night humming with silence. Police filed it as a trespassing anomaly. Corporate filed it as unverified. But employees who saw it never forgot. One stalker quit on the spot, muttering, "It wasn't that they vanished. It was how normal they looked, like we were the intruders, not them." The abandoned carts were cataloged. Shampoo bottles, soup cans, toys. Each basket contained multiples of the same item, as if chosen not for need, but for effect. Some employees joked it was a prank. Others whispered about cults, ghosts, or government tests, but no explanation stuck. The psychological experiment. Some believe it was staged. Actors, hidden entrances, deliberate manipulation to measure stress responses. After all, what better lab than a store already filled with cameras, already designed to watch us? Mass hallucination. Skeptics argue fatigue, the mind misfiring under fluorescent lights. But then, why did 15 employees file near-identical reports? Why did every detail align? The fake money, the synchronized movements, the impossible exit, the inexplicable. And for the rest, this was something beyond explanation. A glitch in reality, a bleed-through of people who were never people at all. The Bakersfield incident was never solved. The official report is barely a paragraph, but to those who stood under the buzzing lights, it was a lifetime. So next time you walk into a big box store late at night, and you notice another shopper moving just a little too much like you, pausing when you pause, reaching when you reach, remember Bakersfield. 15 people entered through locked doors. They shopped with money that wasn't real. And when the night was over, they vanished. The aisles are waiting. Story 4, Vanishing Aisle. What if the most haunted place in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, isn't the old Silver Bridge site or a moth-eyed statue on Main Street, but the fluorescent rows of America's largest retailer? One October night in 2017, a woman locals call Catherine Mills pushed a cart into the supercenter off State Route 2 and was never seen leaving. No exit on camera, no footsteps in the lot, just a cart, a list, and a silence that still hangs in the aisles like fog over the Ohio River. Keep the lights on if you want, they won't help. Point Pleasant has always lived with the idea of signs, omen, pattern. People will tell you the air changes before bad news, like static before a storm. So when word spread that a shopper had vanished inside the store, no doors opening, no alarms chirping, it didn't feel like the beginning of a mystery. It felt like the end of a sentence the town had been writing for decades. I arrived that winter chasing whispers. Nobody agreed on the facts. Everyone agreed on the feeling. Things don't disappear, a bait shop owner told me. They finish. Most versions agree. Catherine was practical early 40s, a list maker. She parked under the sodium orange glow of the outer lot. Inside, she shopped like everyone does. Tomatoes first because they bruise, bread last because it doesn't. But somewhere in between, reality fractures. A cashier remembers eye contact once, then never again. A stalker swears she saw Catherine in 3 departments in under a minute. A manager, trained not to speculate, told me so carefully that the words felt pre-measured. When closing time came, her cart sat neutral in aisle 7. Purse in it. List taped to the handle. Milk, eggs, coffee, paper towels. Candle autumn orchard. Nothing cinematic, just a life mid-sentence. Cameras are supposed to be memory. They don't look away. But that night, the math broke. At 9:33, Catherine appears in produce. Minutes later, another angle shows her in seasonal pharmacy home goods at times that overlap. Vestibule exit cameras never catch her leaving. The closing count, in minus out, still equals 1. Corporate calls this camera occlusion. Police say unverified. The workers call it what it felt like, wrong. One maintenance tech whispered that the convex mirror over aisle 12 showed her still walking when the cameras did not. The mirror kept her going straight, he said, holding his hands still on the table as if to stop something from moving. I found a shopper, call her Mara, who said she spoke to Catherine near laundry detergent. Do you still carry lemon scent? Simple words. But Mara swears her mouth lagged behind her face, like 2 versions were deciding. Footage shows Mara talking to empty space, stepping aside as if making room for someone you can't quite see. Watching it feels like missing a stair that isn't there. Once the story escaped, it bred more stories. A teacher swore mirrors ran a beat behind. A teen said price tags curled overnight, smudging fingers that weren't dirty. A child said the Halloween aisle twitched when no one walked through. Coincidence, some say. Fatigue, others shrug. In Point Pleasant, they just say, that's Point Pleasant. The official incident report, purged. Routine data retention, but locals remember a midnight conference call. Corporate on speaker, regional on mute, managers coached to sound like machines. The instruction that stuck, normalized staffing. Do you know why we hate the phrase vision center? One manager asked me. Because the minute you say it, you start thinking the store has eyes. Her car waited, cool hood, breath fog air. Inside, tote with old receipts. A paperback cracked at chapter 12. A quarter under the mat. Phone face down on the seat. Screen showing a dog that wasn't there and a weather alert for river fog. Keys in the purse left in the cart. It all felt like evidence of someone who intended to come back until she didn't. The store went back to life. Seasonal aisles turned, bread softened, gardens smelled of damp soil. But ask employees, and they'll give you the residue. A pallet jack rolling on level floor. A scanner refusing one item at one exact spot. A mirror that insists you turned left when you didn't. a denim rack that echoes your name back one syllable short. The store teaches you to doubt your own mouth. Alone, each detail is noise. Together, they map a shape. Registers glitching near closing. Music dropping out for a high air tone. Planograms shifting overnight, not proof, but smoke. The cruelest thought, what if nothing supernatural happened at all? What if human design, lights, mirrors, sound, layout, creates holes in the map where someone can vanish without moving an inch? And Point Pleasant, primed by folklore, is simply more honest about admitting how terrifying that is. One employee swears there's a frame where Catherine exists in 3 aisles at once. Maybe it never existed. Maybe it did and was buried under routine. He told me it felt like a house of mirrors, and the real one stopped showing up. Then he asked, if a mirror shows me first, do I have to catch up? I saw a photocopy of her list, not the items, the tape, torn clean across the logo, folded twice with certainty. A sideways note in the margin, don't forget the key. But the purse had 3 keys. None matched anything left behind. A reminder without a door. Ask 10 people, get 10 myths. A service corridor, a misset sensor, a delivery cage left open. Here's the version I give myself. The store is a machine for moving attention. Brights, colors, shortcuts, you're shepherded without realizing. Maybe the cameras worked. Maybe they blinked. Maybe 1,000 tiny nudges walked her out without a single hand on her shoulder. That's scarier than monsters, because it means ordinary design can erase you. Today, Point Pleasant carries the story like river water carries shape. No agreement on facts. Universal agreement on the unease. People leave flowers in places that aren't graves. Her parking spot, a bench outside the vestibule. The spot by customer service where an abandoned scanner beeped by itself for an hour, like it too wanted to be counted. You might go yourself. GPS apologizing at the street name. Parking lot too bright, too clean. Step inside, temperature shift. It's just a store. It's also a place designed to notice and misdirect at once. If you hear a half tone in the air, stop. If a mirror shows you a step early, plant your feet. If your reflection lags 1/10 of a second, smile anyway. Give her a cue to follow. On your way out, count the doors, then count again. Catherine Mills, if that was her name, entered a building that thinks in straight lines and left behind a town haunted by curves. Maybe she's legend. Maybe she walked out unseen. Or maybe Point Pleasant is right. Some stories don't end. They finish. And sometimes they finish in places so ordinary, you never think to be afraid. Until the lights hum, the mirror blinks, and you realize the exit you trusted isn't the only way out. Story 5. The Nexus Files. America's biggest retailer and the experiment hiding in plain sight. What if I told you the most dangerous laboratory in America isn't buried in a mountain, isn't protected by barbed wire fences, and doesn't even call itself a laboratory? Instead, it's the same place you buy frozen pizza, cheap televisions, and a bottle of shampoo on a Sunday night. In July 2020, a 47-page corporate file leaked to the press. Its title, Project Nexus. If what's inside is true, millions of ordinary shoppers have already been used as test subjects in one of the largest behavioral experiments in modern history. And the scariest part? You may have been one of them. The story began when a Washington newsroom received a plain envelope, no return address, no explanation. Inside, a thick stack of papers stamped in red ink, Confidential Project Nexus. Forensic analysts confirmed it wasn't a hoax. The paper trail led straight back to Bentonville, Arkansas, the headquarters of the biggest retailer in America. What the document revealed was chilling. 7 years of covert trials, thousands of stores, millions of unsuspecting customers. Every strange incident shoppers whispered about for years, sudden dizziness, odd behavior from strangers, impossible reflections, wasn't random. It was controlled, planned, measured. According to the file, Walmart wasn't only selling products, it was selling experiments in control. Subliminal audio. Speakers hidden in the ceilings emitted low tones designed to raise anxiety or lull shoppers into compliance. Weaponized lighting. Fluorescent bulbs flickered at specific frequencies to affect mood. And in some trials, memory itself. Surveillance beyond security. Cameras didn't just track shoplifters. They analyzed micro-expressions, mapping how panic or confusion spread like a virus. Actors among us. Paid operatives were planted as ordinary customers to trigger stress responses in both staff and shoppers. In Project Nexus, every aisle became a laboratory variable, and every shopper became a subject. Once the leak surfaced, previously isolated stories suddenly aligned into something far darker. A man in Louisiana who secretly lived inside a supercenter for days without being detected. A group of shoppers in California who moved in eerie synchronization, paid with counterfeit bills, and vanished into the night. The infamous Salem mirrors incident, where customers swore their reflections moved slower than reality or wore different clothes entirely. Alone, these stories felt like creepy urban legends. Together, they looked like coordinated trials. Buried deep in the leaked papers were profiles of participants and employees. Customers who developed insomnia, paranoia, or memory gaps. A cashier in Oklahoma who quit after recurring nightmares convinced her that mannequins were breathing. A woman who journaled dozens of entries about aisles that stretched longer than physics should allow. These weren't random side effects. They were data points. And still, the program continued. Why would the biggest retailer in America risk it all for such a program? The file hinted at shadowy partnerships, government agencies, tech firms, behavioral scientists hiding behind shell contracts. The official goals: research in consumer behavior, optimizing sales environments, testing crowd control methods. But the deeper questions were more sinister. How far can you bend a person's sense of reality before they break? How do you make someone doubt their own eyes, their own memory, their own safety, under bright lights and security cameras with hundreds of witnesses nearby? After the leak, insiders began speaking out. An IT contractor described installing security hubs that secretly emitted subsonic sound frequencies. A night manager claimed she was ordered to delay 911 calls during emergencies to measure how long staff and customers could endure panic without outside help. But every whistleblower was quickly silenced, contracts terminated, reputations destroyed, lawsuits buried under mountains of corporate money. The company dismissed it all as internet conspiracies, but the paper trail told another story. When the Washington Post ran its exposé, outrage exploded. Shoppers revisited old experiences, aisles that felt endless, sudden chills in empty sections, the unsettling feeling of being watched. Lawsuits piled up. Politicians demanded investigations. Social media gave it a name: the fluorescent labyrinth. And yet, after billions spent on legal defense, no executives were charged. Americans went back to shopping, back under the same flickering lights. Here's the twist that makes this story even more terrifying. We may never know if Project Nexus was fully real, partly real, or, more disturbing, still running right now. Think about it. If the true purpose of the experiment was to study paranoia, what better test than leaking a classified document into the world and watching how society reacts? So next time you step into a supercenter, take a breath. Listen to the hum of the lights. Glance at the mirrors. Notice the way strangers move just a little too in sync. And ask yourself, are you shopping? Or are you being studied? Story 6. The Walmart footage they tried to erase Roswell's vanishing woman. What if I told you that in the heart of Roswell, New Mexico, the city already infamous for UFO conspiracies, security footage leaked from America's largest retailer appeared to capture the impossible? A single shopper, seen in multiple places at once, slipping through solid glass as though physics no longer applied. A video that corporate executives allegedly buried before it could spread. Tonight, we peel back the layers of what really happened inside that Walmart, and why so many believe it was never just a glitch in the cameras, but a glimpse into something far darker. December 18th, 2020. Just 50 minutes before closing, a young woman named Maria Santos entered the Roswell Walmart. By all accounts, she was ordinary, 28 years old, a local teacher, no history of unusual behavior. She grabbed a cart, walked to the produce aisle, and began selecting apples. Shoppers later described her as quiet, focused, completely normal. But the security cameras told a different story. At exactly 11:46 p.m., Maria froze, her hand suspended in midair as if time itself had stopped around her. No blinking, no breathing, no movement. For almost a minute, she stood motionless, until suddenly she resumed shopping as if nothing had happened. Other shoppers noticed nothing unusual, but the cameras did. As Maria bagged apples, another camera 30 feet away showed her browsing the organic section at the same exact moment. Same clothes, same face, same woman, two Marias existing simultaneously. Staff who reviewed the footage swore both figures moved differently. One efficient, almost robotic. The other hesitant, pausing to read labels as if seeing them for the first time. Months later, digital analysts confirmed the tape wasn't doctored. No edits, no frame splices, just raw feed. Which leaves one chilling question. Was it really Maria or something imitating her? Minutes later, the dairy aisle captured the most disturbing moment. Maria walked up to a refrigerator door, but instead of opening it, she stepped straight through the solid glass. Inside the cooler, surrounded by cartons of milk, her reflection shimmered briefly, then stabilized. She casually checked expiration dates, standing where no human body should ever stand. At the same time, another camera in frozen foods showed her speaking, though no one stood near her. The audio mics caught fragments. Yes, I can see them now. The shelves are better than expected. She carried no phone, no earpiece, just words whispered into empty air. By 11:54 p.m., the footage spiraled into the unexplainable. 4 cameras captured her at once. One Maria re-entering the store. One restocking apples she had already taken. One rearranging milk from inside the fridge. And one at the locked pharmacy counter, conversing with a pharmacist who later swore under oath that no such encounter ever happened. Then, at 11:57:15, every version of Maria disappeared in a single frame. The aisles were empty. The store was silent. 2 minutes later, she calmly pushed a cart to checkout, paid for apples, bananas, milk, frozen vegetables, the exact same items seen across all 4 versions of her shopping trip. Corporate security reviewed the tapes, labeling it a technical anomaly. But when outside technicians examined the system, they found nothing wrong. No corruption, no glitches, no discontinuities. Maria herself recalled nothing unusual. She remembered only an ordinary trip. She grabbed produce, milk, checked out, and went home. But when investigators showed her the footage, her face went pale. "That's me," she whispered. "But I don't remember any of that." Weeks later, the footage leaked online, allegedly from a security tech horrified by Walmart's order to bury the evidence. Corporate lawyers issued immediate takedowns, but it was too late. Clips spread across conspiracy forums, paranormal channels, and YouTube breakdowns. Skeptics claim it was just a camera glitch, faces duplicated across feeds. But digital forensics experts counter. The breathing patterns, body language, and eye movements were all distinct. Others believe Maria slipped into a time fracture, a localized rip in reality where parallel versions overlapped. And in Roswell, long obsessed with UFO lore, that theory has fuel. A darker possibility, that it wasn't an accident at all. That Walmart, or perhaps the government itself, was conducting an experiment in reality manipulation, testing the boundaries of perception in the perfect lab. A brightly lit store, lined with cameras, filled with unsuspecting shoppers. Today, Maria Santos still lives in Roswell. She refuses to shop alone at night. Her colleagues whisper she's changed, sometimes pausing mid-sentence, as though her mind glitches the same way her body once did on tape. The original footage has been scrubbed from most of the internet, but fragments remain. Grainy, distorted, impossible to forget. So the next time you walk into a store after hours, surrounded by mirrors, fluorescent hum, and endless rows of cameras, remember Roswell, remember Maria, and ask yourself, if you suddenly saw yourself in another aisle doing something you don't remember, would anyone believe you? Because in America's biggest retailer, the shelves may hold more than just groceries. They may hold proof that reality itself has already fractured. Story 7, the Salem mirror shift. What would you do if your reflection hesitated, but you didn't? If a mirror in a bright, ordinary store showed you wearing clothes you never owned? Or a younger face you haven't seen in 20 years? Tonight, we open an incident file corporate never wanted trending, the Salem mirror shift. Because on one week in late October, inside a Massachusetts superstore, the mirrors started getting the future wrong. Fluorescent aisles, end cap displays, postcard-sized price tags. It could be any big box store in America. But this was Salem, Massachusetts, October 2021. Ethan Grady, the night manager, calm, ex-military, notebook always in his pocket, logs everything. At 6:42 a.m., a regular customer points at a full-length mirror. It's lagging. She raises her hand. In the glass, her reflection lifts 2 beats late. For Ethan, the mirror is normal. For her, wrong. An hour later, a dad reports the convex mirror shows his son in a red hoodie. In reality, it's yellow. By noon, 5 reports. By night's end, 11. Day 2, a young associate texts in the restroom. She looks up, her reflection keeps typing even though her real phone is locked. Day 3, security footage shows a shopper's reflection mouthing words she never spoke. Maya, a nursing student on the crew, lip-reads the phrase clear as day. Don't turn around. Ethan staples the still to his log and asks the obvious question. What box do you check when a mirror talks without you? Maintenance insists nothing changed, until cleaning staff admits they'd applied a new clarity coat, an anti-fog microfilm solvent. Ethan calls in Lewis, the gray-bearded custodian with his own odd toolkit, EMF meter, decibel app patience. They measure low hums from HVAC, harmonics from the floor buffer. Lewis explains, infrasound makes people dizzy, but mirrors. Mirrors don't lie because of fans, he mutters. Day 4, the floor buffer rolls past jewelry. Every mirror ripples like a stadium wave of light echoing down the aisle. Stop the buffer, the ripples vanish. Start it again, the ripples return. Day 5, baby goods. A pregnant shopper sees her reflection holding a swaddled infant. For 3 clean seconds, she cradles empty arms before collapsing in sobs. The mirrors aren't just behind. They're ahead. Corporate brings in Dr. Lena Bloom, a psychologist who studies retail environments. She checks flicker rates, glare angles, harmonic beats. She talks about dissociation triggers. But in pharmacy, the science stops sounding safe. Derek, an associate with a long forehead scar, glances into the mirror. For 15 seconds, the scar vanishes. His face looks like it did before the wreck. Bloom's pen freezes. She orders the mirror removed immediately. That night, Ethan and Lewis unbolt the jewelry mirror. Laid flat on a cart, it vibrates, not in the air but in the bones of their hands. Out by the dumpsters, the mirror reflects a version of the loading bay that isn't quite right, missing bulbs, pallets stacked wrong. Ethan takes a photo. The phone only shows glare. He signs the removal order anyway. 2:11 a.m., day 6. A convex dome mirror shows Maya walking, but her reflection stops, raises a finger. SHHHH. Then dozens of miniature reflections ripple the same gesture. A wall of silent warning. By morning, half the mirrors are papered over. Glare control, Ethan tells customers. Cleaning crews strip the coating. A tech grins, says the film was miracle clarity. Maya watches the fog clear from a restroom mirror and sees her freshman year self, bright, rested, untouched by grief. The younger version looks directly at her. The moment snaps like a soap bubble. Mirrors rarely misbehave on camera. Overhead lenses catch aisles, not glass planes. Phones just capture glare, but logs exist. Note 1631Q, reflection mouthing, don't turn around. Woe 514, removal of jewelry, pharmacy, and restroom mirrors. Lewis's notebook, a hand-drawn grid. Reports cluster in a sideways figure 8, infinity or a belt slipping. By November, every mirror replaced. HVAC belts retensioned. Buffer rescheduled. Complaints stop. The store exhales. But people carry mirrors inside them. Derek touches his scar like prayer beads. The pregnant shopper orders online. Maya keeps a compact mirror in her locker, sometimes swears she sees a lag. Ethan transfers stores, leaves a sticky note in his notebook. If mirrors act weird, don't argue. Remove, replace, move on. Lewis retires. On his last night, he pats the wall and says, "Places remember." Bloom publishes her paper, dry, clinical, never mentioning Salem. And then the DM arrives. A cashier named Ray films herself walking. In her phone, her reflection halts, looks out, and raises a finger. SHHH. The real Ray keeps moving. The file plays back clean. No glitch. Just a frame that shouldn't exist. Here are the safe explanations. Infrasound plus flicker scrambles perception. Anti-fog coatings bend light strangely. Suggestion fills in the blanks. Grief conjures what's missing. Here's the other explanation. Some places keep a thin wall between what is and what might have been. And when glass stops obeying, you don't argue with it. You take it down. Beat. If a mirror shows you in clothes you've never owned, say the colors out loud. If it shows you without your scars, touch them and count to 10. If it tells you not to turn around, don't. Find someone, make reality social again. This was the Salem mirror shift, or at least the part that made it onto paper. If you've ever seen a mirror lag, glitch, or whisper a warning, leave a comment. Because sometimes the only thing that keeps the glass in line is sunlight and a crowded comment section. Story 8, Levy's ledger, the El Paso protocols. At 3:41 p.m., a man calling himself Levy placed a small, weather-softened notebook on a customer service counter in a vast supercenter east of El Paso and said, "I'm not here to shop, I'm here to return tomorrow." He wasn't frantic. He wasn't armed. He was precise, calm, like a librarian reshelving the end of the world. You know the feeling inside America's biggest stores. Miles of tile under endless white light, the air too cold, time moving just a little too slow. On April 23, 2021, the East El Paso Supercenter felt normal. Weekend coupons, broken price scanner, mothers herding kids past end caps stacked like walls. Then Levy, mid-30s, Navy windbreaker, hands empty. He stops not at electronics, not at food, but at a forgotten end cap of wall clocks. 30 faces, all telling the same wrong minute. At customer service, Lena Morales asks her usual line, "How can I help you today?" Levy doesn't blink. I need to lodge a chronometric affidavit and a conditional return. The item hasn't been released yet. Lena laughs until she sees his eyes, not glassy, not wild, focused. He slides a notebook across the counter, not words, glyphs, tight lines, loops that look like chemistry and star maps had a child. Is there a supervisor? Levy asks. Time sensitivity. Kenji Park, assistant manager, comes forward, polite armor in place. Levy taps 3 places in the notebook. The marks resolve if you squint. A store layout. Wrong. Aisles drawn like constellations. And caps labeled anchor points. This building overlays with a transit lattice, Levy says. I need 10 minutes of uninterrupted movement, clocks to garden to loading dock. Then I leave. No theft, no harm. Kenji hears liability. He sees a comm man asking for strange access. He follows training, keeps tone warm, radios asset protection. In the camera room, Archero Salinas, ex-field tech, watches Levy, no fidgeting. No scanning for tags, just waiting. Like a train certain the station will come to. Dr. Mayria Calderon, pharmacist, strolls over. She hears return tomorrow and thinks, mental health assist. Do you mean a scheduled pickup? Levy smiles, almost apologetic. No, the calendar is a retail fiction. You sell days here on clocks, on planners. You don't see the seams because the lighting is good. I need to calibrate the anchor. If I'm wrong, I'll apologize and buy batteries. He asks for 3 items, strange together but cheap. A seed packet, an analog wristwatch, 2 AA batteries. They let him walk chaperoned. Archero trailing, Lena beside him, Mayria keeping it human. Levy pauses at a freezer door, holds the watch to the glass. Delta 3 seconds, not great. At garden, he picks seed packets at random, marigold, chard, something unpronounceable. He whispers. There's a burst ahead. Someone will be angry in housewares soon. Not important. 15 seconds later, a man shouts about a blender. Lena freezes. Archero doesn't. He's seen coincidence wear the mask of prophecy. Near seasonal, a kid in a dinosaur mask stares. Levy kneels, gentle. You'll be 13 when it rains on a day it shouldn't. Plant these the morning before. He presses the charred packet into the child's hand. People rationalize anything if it looks like kindness. Levy doesn't preach doom. He offers small mercies. Leave 3 minutes later. Keep a paper map in the drawer. Power strips survive longer than our plans. Mayria studies him. Breathing steady. Pupils normal. Not intoxicated. Not manic. The calmest man in the building. Kenji, meanwhile, buys time with polite stalling, police en route. PR first. Safety second. At the microwaves, Levy places the wristwatch inside, door open, unpowered. He sets the seed packet beside it. Taps the notebook. Tap, tap, tap. In 12 minutes, officers arrive. I'll go with them, that's fine. But don't update the store map tonight. Maps are how we make time behave. Change the map, change the scene. He asks to walk one last path. Clocks, right arrow seasonal, right arrow garden, right arrow loading dock. No interruptions. They allow it. At the clocks, second hands stutter. Lena feels a phantom draft. None exists. At garden, he breathes deeper, like he's under the right sky. At the dock, he stands on the yellow line. There are 2 kinds of doors, the ones you lock so you're safe, and the ones the world locks so it remains real. He smiles. I'm done, we can go back now. Officers Reyes and Bolton arrive, body cams on. Got ID, sir. It's substrate encoded, not helpful. They pat him down, nothing but the notebook. Bolton flips it, glyphs, dreamlike, unreadable. Mayria asks, do you feel safe? Any thoughts of self-harm? Levy, safety is contextual. He requests photos of the clocks and garden neon. Kenji says no. Archero quietly says yes, snaps them, hands Levy nothing. Levy doesn't look at the screen. He just nods. They escort him out, calm as a yoga class. Shoppers watch, then forget by dinner. From here, the ledger becomes a story of lingering fractures. The notebook spreads unease. Pages look like timing marks, arrows between here and soon and don't. Archero's photos vanish from his phone, replaced by gray blocks with warped time stamps. Customers report watches running fast. Arguments in aisles deflate unnaturally. Mirrors show copies of stalkers slightly out of sync. Kenji updates the store map anyway, and a light bursts above him at the exact moment. He files maintenance, refuses to see the dot it connects. Lena finds seed packets marked in Levy's hand. Thank you for not changing the map. But Kenji did. Mayurya gets a 3 a.m. call, Levy's voice recorded, thanking her for kindness, telling her, don't archive the ledger, it's still writing. Receipts print from the future. Bolton's photocopy of the ledger page falls midair, caught by nothing, then drops. Each small glitch feels harmless until you realize they are returns. Returns of borrowed moments. 2 months later, an unmarked envelope arrives. Inside, 2 real photos, Archero's lost shots of the clocks and garden neon. On the back, you didn't change the map when it mattered. Thank you. L. Kenji files it under found. There is no folder called Mercy. Supercenters run on returns. Every return is a tiny apology. I chose wrong, I was too early, too late, not the person I thought I was in that aisle. Maybe that's all Levy came to do. Return tomorrow while tomorrow was still in policy. Did he come from 2087? From grief too heavy for one timeline? From a scene where maps and minutes overlap? We don't know. The ledger remains. It adds lines when no one's looking. Arrows pointing from here to soon to don't. If you visit that store, stand by the clocks. 3 breaths. Don't touch your phone. Listen for the minute that wasn't supposed to happen yet. If it comes, don't panic. Change nothing. Watch everything. And if a man in a Navy windbreaker asks you for a seed packet, be kind. He might be here to return something we all borrowed. Story 9, the aisle 14 decision. If you've ever worked the dawn shift, you know the sound that makes you feel safe. The steady hum of lights. The soft beep of handheld scanners. Like a heartbeat for an empty building. On November 18, 2018, that heartbeat stuttered, then went silent in aisle 14. An elderly man lay between cereal and instant coffee, and a handful of employees had to decide what mattered more, a stranger's dignity or a corporation's rules. Before we get into it, ask yourself one question. If your job told you to wait, would you let a body wait? This is a story about America's largest retailer, but it's really about us. About that razor-thin line where policy collides with conscience. The names and minor details are changed, but the day happened. The choices were real, and the building remembers. My name isn't the one on the paperwork, and it's not the one I wore on the blue badge either. Call me Maya. I was a department lead in electronics, Tulsa, Oklahoma. Sundays at 6 a.m. were ritual. Reset phone price tags, set end caps, sip burnt break room coffee. The skeleton crew. Dennis, overnight supervisor, always walking 5 minutes behind. Lewis, TV wall genius. Kara, the new hire, still flinched when the PA chimed. Andre, maintenance, who treated scuffed linoleum like a church floor. At 6:37 a.m., the radio snapped alive. Manager to grocery, aisle 14, right now. No one said medical, no one said urgent, but urgency doesn't need words, it moves the air around your ribs. He was there between Cheerios and store-brand cornflakes. One hand outstretched, palm up like he wanted to help. His cart, milk, canned peaches, decaf. Thinking of you greeting cards, a loaf of white bread, a winter coat in late fall Oklahoma. It looked like routine, like life. Andre pulled wet floor signs, setting them in a ring like bright yellow candles. Kara brought paper towels because that's what you do when something spills. I reached for my phone. Dennis caught my wrist. Protocol, radios only, no personal calls. 911, I said. Liability, he answered. I heard the word and I hated it. The man wasn't breathing. Some truths don't need training, they just announce themselves. Dennis looked at the ceiling camera. We do this right. We don't get fired over a mistake. Andre knelt beside him. Sir? His voice floated in that fluorescent canyon. No response. I thought of his groceries. The card that said thinking of you. And rage came in 3 words. Call the number. Rebecca, the assistant store manager, arrived, corporate cadence in rubber soles. Phones away, we follow procedure. Procedure doesn't breathe, I said. She draped a tarp. Radioed loss prevention. Used words like containment and guest experience. By 7:02, the far end of aisle 14 was blocked. The near end still open. A family pushed past. The little girl pointed at the cartoon bee on a cereal box and laughed. The man's wristwatch ticked. I swear I heard it. At 7:18, the intercom chimed. Attention associates, we are now open. The bones in my face went cold. We steered customers away with end caps of peppermint coffee and pumpkin spice. A woman asked me where the decaf in the green tin was. I lied. Other side of the store. At 7:52, his daughter called. Her voice cracked with fear. My dad comes every Sunday. Brown coat. Decaf, peaches, he's not answering. Rebecca answered smoothly. We'll check the floor, we'll page him. She wrote the number like writing excuse not calling. At 8:10, paramedics finally arrived. They did their sad, certain work. One whispered, time of death. Dennis gave a time. The paramedic wrote it down without checking a clock. Loss prevention came, pressed shirts, perfect pens. They wanted bullet points, not truths. Who discovered the guest? Exactly when did you notice? Who made which calls? I wrote he was a person. Scratched it out. Wrote we should have called sooner. Scratched it out. Andre's page said only we waited. Rebecca printed new training modules, highlighted lines in pink. We'll be better next time, she promised. It sounded like wallpaper over rot. Later, his daughter came in, carried out his groceries in a paper bag, comped like a coupon could make it better. That night, I dreamed of aisle markers as tombstones. The scanner beep was a flat line. The next morning, I typed her number into an email. I was there. We didn't call right away. I'm sorry. I didn't hit send. Silence is easier to live with than unemployment. Dennis handed me a corrective action form. Disruptive. Andre got buffer duty every night. Kara lost hours. Rebecca told me, policy protects us. Maybe from lawsuits, I said. Not from ourselves. I went back to selling phone cases, pretending. 2 days later, HR arrived with binders and words like enhancements. We signed non-disclosure acknowledgments. Signatures that felt like gags. That night, I almost sent the email again. Deleted it. Called Andre instead. He whispered. The floor kept the outline. I can still see it. He wasn't talking about the floor. I didn't storm out. Nobody does. I gave notice. Folded shirts into a bag. Rebecca shook my hand. Best of luck. Dennis gave a half hug. Kara cried in housewares. On my last day, I walked aisle 14 one more time. The Cheerios had been moved to eye level. The wet floor signs replaced with cocoa mix displays. A bandage that matched the wallpaper. I thought I heard a ticking watch. I thought of a daughter holding a bag of peaches and decaf. Outside, the November air was the exact temperature of confession. Buildings keep stories the way skin keeps scars. The hum of lights isn't just electricity, it's choices, repeating. The scanner beep is a heartbeat or a flatline. A week later, Andre texted me. They changed the training. First step is call. A body turned into a bullet point. A life into a laminated binder. People will say this is about a corporation. It's not. Corporations just amplify who we already are. On that morning in November, we showed the building who we were, and the building will remember. If you've listened this far, you know. This isn't about cereal or scanners or shifts. It's about what we owe each other when no one is watching, except the cameras. So if you're ever standing in the moment where policy says wait and dignity says move, I hope you move, because the building will remember either way. Make it remember the right thing. Story 10. Graveyard transfer the night the paper aisles went empty. If I vanish after posting this, remember one thing. They signed my name on documents I never touched. In April 2020, at a supercenter outside Portland, a routine transfer emptied our paper aisles with surgical precision. The crew wore our vests, used our scanners, and even fixed things we'd reported broken for months. They were perfect employees because they were never there. Smash that subscribe button, because the footage you're about to hear described exists, but not the people in it. The graveyard shift at store 2147, east side of Portland, began at 10:58 p.m. Back then, the paper aisle was chaos. Panic buying, angry calls, shelves stripped clean. Assistant overnight manager Alina Park had slept in her car more than once. That Tuesday, she followed her routine. Count pallets, check cameras, lock the dock. Then her handheld pinged with a new transfer. Reb TP 041420 Dest, 2303. A rebalance order for paper goods. Normal, except the timestamp was 3 minutes in the future. Her initials, E. Park, already appeared in the approval field. Loss Prevention Officer Owen Price shook his head. I didn't pre-sign anything, but the handheld glowed, approved by E. Park 11, 10:42 p.m. Alina's watch, 11:07:11. Then the dock alarm chimed, Bay 4 requesting access. No trucks were scheduled. The monitor displayed Pacific Paper Dist, a vendor they hadn't used since 2016. When they reached the dock, the seal was unbroken. The door was shut. And yet, the alarm kept chiming faint like it came from a speaker underwater. At 11:20 p.m., 4 workers entered through the employee door. Pressed vests, clean clipboards, calm confidence. Their badges read, J. Monroe, T. Vale, R. Cortez, S. Wong. None of those names appeared on Alina's schedule. Night rebalance team, Monroe said, presenting perfect manifests, fonts, stamps, even a fake coffee ring. Sign here, we'll pull, stage, and scan. Alina didn't sign. Who called you? Operations, Monroe replied. They said you were short-handed. If it was a heist, it was flawless. They spoke in 10 codes only managers knew. Monroe's scanner even chirped the custom tone Alina had programmed into her own. Meanwhile, Owen checked the vendor directory. Pacific Paper Distributors, inactive. But buried below, inactive, pilot vendor, do not purge. Within minutes, the crew split like a fire team. Wong pulling bulk packs from backroom A. Cortez slashing zip ties with surgeon's precision. Vale wrapping pallets drum tight. Monroe stripping price tags, stacking them neat as playing cards. The aisle looked cleaner than ever, facing perfect. Labels realigned, like watching a time lapse if time could skip. At 11:47, Alina's radio hissed with static that sounded like breathing. Then the intercom spoke without prompting. Transfer team to Bay 4. Safety check complete. Roll up clear. Proceed. Owen called from the office. Alina, the dock camera shows the bay open. It's not. On the feed, a wide black mouth missed drifting in. In person, steel slats down, vibrating under her palm like a subwoofer. Back in paper goods, Monroe worked in silence. His handheld flickered, 11:52:13, then skipped forward 5 minutes. Time missing. Alina demanded a badge check. Vale smiled without teeth. He tapped his badge. Access granted. That feature had been disabled for months. Pilot routing, he said softly. Ops wants to know how fast a 4-person team can neutralize a high-demand category under crisis constraints. Neutralize. A pallet jack rolled past, driverless. Wong stepped aside as though choreographed. Then came the smell, ozone and lavender, like lightning and laundry. Owen returned with a printout. Dispatch confirmed the transfer from a masked number, and there it was again, Alina's digital signature, logged at 11:10:42, a time that hadn't existed yet. Meanwhile, Cortez popped ceiling tiles, clipped a fiber line to the network, murmuring, "Temporary throughput for scan sync." How did they know ceiling maps of a random store? The handhelds chimed, pallet 009/009 complete. Alina challenged them. "Where's your truck?" "Monroe, Bay 4. "It's shut." "Open enough," he said. On camera, pallets flowed into a glowing trailer. In person, they slid through steel like holograms. Alina touched one. It was solid until it wasn't. Monroe's eyes flicked to hers, almost kind. "Your counts will balance by sunrise. Shelves will look better. Guest flow cleaner. Isn't that what you want?" Policy required a sign out. Alina walked them to break room B. The four removed their vests, folded perfectly, no lint, no sweat. "Appreciate the cooperation," Monroe said. "We'll leave by the north exit." "There is no north exit," Owen snapped. "Tonight, there," the intercom rasped. "Rebalance complete. Recording archived. Variance null. Proceed." Alina demanded, "Who signed my name?" "Monroe. Your system did. We don't make the rules. We just move the boxes." On the TV, the camera grid flickered, showing Alina herself scanning, wrapping, signing forms she never touched. "Composite records," Vale explained. "Audits need stories." They stepped into the hall. One by one, they vanished around the corner. When Alina followed, only humming lights remained. And that faint lavender smell. At dawn, the paper aisle gleamed. Empty, immaculate. A note taped under the top shelf read, "Thank you for your flexibility during rebalancing." The handwriting almost hers, corporate emailed praise for flawless execution. But store 2303 reported no incoming shipment. When Alina tried to save evidence, screenshots vanished. Photos corrupted, lavender streaks. The printer spat a single word, null. 3 weeks later, a padded envelope arrived at Alina's house. Inside, a high-vis vest with her name misspelled, Alana. A dead zebra scanner screen cracked. When she charged it, the display lit. RebTP 041420, complete approved by Park Replay. Y/N. She didn't press anything. The device pressed Y itself. The video showed the four moving like choreography, pallets sliding through closed doors, and Alina smiling the smile she used for customers, signing, scanning, wrapping. Her body doing what she never did. Then a blink-long message. "Pilot complete, store compliant, thank you for your cooperation." So what was the horror that night? Criminals in perfect disguise, a corporate pilot test, or a building reshuffling reality like a polite poltergeist? Here's what Alina will tell you on a good day. Real, the paper aisle went empty with elegance. Real, a vendor marked "Do Not Purge" processed a flawless transfer. Real, her signature exists at a time she hadn't lived yet. Real, the cameras show versions of her that never were. The rest, you decide. Alina doesn't work nights anymore. On her fridge, she keeps a note, sign nothing. And below it, a second note, handwriting almost hers. "Thank you for your flexibility." If this video disappears, now you know why. Story 11. The Walmart Stalker Phoenix, 2020. What if the place you thought was the safest? A brightly lit 24-hour store filled with cameras and people was actually the perfect hunting ground. Tonight, I'll take you inside one of the most unsettling encounters ever reported in America's largest retail chain. A late-night grocery run, a hooded figure in the aisles, and a stalker whose behavior was so precise it bordered on the inhuman. This is the story of Emily, and why she has never shopped alone again. Phoenix, Arizona, August 2020. The pandemic still had people on edge, but grocery stores remained lifelines. Emily Parker, a hardworking medical assistant, had just finished a long clinic shift. Exhausted, she decided to stop at her local Walmart for a few essentials. She'd been there dozens of times before, routine, familiar, safe. But that night, something felt off. The aisles seemed emptier than usual. The fluorescent lights felt harsher, buzzing louder, the silence thicker. And what Emily didn't know was that this trip would blur the line between coincidence, paranoia, and something far darker. At first, it was nothing, just another shopper, a cart squeaking behind her in produce. But Emily noticed the timing. She stopped for tomatoes, he stopped. She reached for bread, he reached too. She bent for bagels, he mirrored the exact same movement. Coincidence, maybe. But the precision was unsettling, too exact, too synchronized. Emily, trained to be detail-oriented from her medical work, decided to test it. She turned down an aisle she never visited, automotive. And there it was again. The same squeak of cartwheels, the same figure. Through the reflection of a chrome display stand, Emily finally saw him. Average height. Dark hoodie pulled low, hands pretending to browse. But his eyes, fixed directly on her reflection, her blood ran cold. This man wasn't shopping, he was studying her. Every pause, every turn, every step, Emily tried to stay calm. She headed for pharmacy, closed, looked for employees, none nearby. The store, once a place of convenience, now felt like a maze with no exits. And always the hooded man kept his distance. Not too close, never too far, just enough that she couldn't shake him. When another shopper appeared, he adjusted seamlessly, pretending to browse, blending into the background. That terrified Emily even more. It meant he wasn't impulsive. He knew how not to get caught. Finally, Emily reached customer service. She explained everything to the employee, her voice shaking. They called security. As she waited, she could still see him standing in electronics, angled perfectly so he had a clean line of sight. When the guard approached, the man didn't panic, didn't argue. He simply abandoned his cart and walked out. No groceries, no items, nothing, because he had never been shopping at all. When security reviewed the footage, the truth became even more chilling. The man had been in the store for over an hour before Emily arrived. Not shopping, just moving up and down aisles, mapping the store. And the moment Emily walked in, he locked onto her, shadowing her every move, abandoning any cover he had been using. The police were called. But technically, no laws were broken. He hadn't touched her. He hadn't spoken to her. He hadn't stolen. All he had done was follow, with surgical precision. What makes this story so terrifying isn't just that Emily was stalked. It's how patient he was, how deliberate, how carefully he managed distance, how seamlessly he blended in when others were near. That kind of behavior suggests practice. It suggests experience. And it raises a horrifying question. How many times had he done this before? How many shoppers brushed off that cold prickle on the back of their necks as paranoia, when in reality they were being studied? Emily never saw him again. But to this day, she refuses to shop alone after dark. And she says the scariest part wasn't that he followed her through Walmart, but that he could vanish just as easily as he appeared. Because if someone can turn a brightly lit, crowded store into their hunting ground, then nowhere is truly safe.